There are certain things in this world that I love so much. I love drinking a fall seasonal craft beer on a brisk October night. I love driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, windows down, blasting some Megadeth on a beautiful summer day. A beautiful Italian meal with a nice glass of red wine. Jon Moxley shitting on WWE Creative. Now, it doesn't have to be Jon Moxley. It could be anybody shitting on WWE Creative. When anyone shits on WWE Creative, my ears perk up and there's a huge smile on my face. I do the old Hulk Hogan thing, with the hand to the ear. What? Oh, yeah, there you go. WWE Creative sucks. It's terrible. Change it. It's killing the company. Out of everything that was said on this podcast with Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho on Wednesday afternoon, those are the words that I hung on to the most. Those are the words that resonated with me more than anything. Now, the feeling in and around the community was that Jon Moxley, after the bombshell of a podcast with Chris Jericho, that Jon Moxley buried WWE and buried Vince McMahon. To whom did he bury WWE and Vince McMahon? Certainly not me. He didn't bury WWE and Vince McMahon to me, or those who have been listening to me since the birth of this podcast. The people who believe Jon Moxley buried WWE and Vince McMahon are the same people that are clueless about the product and have no idea of what is going on. Those are the people who watch every week and find nothing wrong with Monday Night Raw or SmackDown Live. Those are the people who complain about people like me about being overly negative and analytic of the product. Those are the people who use the ever so original and brilliant line of, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Jon Moxley didn't bury WWE. He didn't bury WWE. Jon Moxley only confirmed what we, as an intelligent species, already knew. WWE buried WWE, and Vince McMahon continues to shovel the dirt on top of the WWE creative coffin. Nothing in the Talk is Jericho podcast came as a shock to me. None of it. The only thing that came as a shock was that he was so quick to discuss his time there, venting his frustration so soon after he rocked the wrestling world at Double or Nothing. The podcast was unadvertised and literally came out of nowhere. It was great hearing Jon Moxley go over what a torturous last 5 months did to him, and it validated all of our feelings. I've said this several times over the past few weeks, and I said it again during my Double or Nothing review on Saturday night in Las Vegas. Many in the community were excited to see Moxley show up as a member of All Elite Wrestling. If you weren't, then you are not the wrestling fan I thought you were, and certainly you never supported Mr. Dean Ambrose in his WWE ventures at all. Now, many were excited, but I think people, outside of all the excitement that was going on, I genuinely don't think that people understood the magnitude of him leaving WWE and what that really means. Yes, he is a notable name on TV this fall, TNT, AEW, and was a part of the biggest stable in WWE history. That is up for opinion. Whether you want to say DX or The Shield, it could go either way. One of the greatest stables in the history of WWE, in the history of this business. It's so much more than any of that as it pertains to Jon Moxley and him showing up for AEW. I reference Jon Moxley as a beacon of hope, a light that disgruntled WWE superstars can look at as a leader. Of course, he is a rare breed, and after listening to him sit down with Jericho, someone who I admire more now than I have ever admired in the past and have a great deal of respect for. Everyone in that locker room listened to that podcast, and everyone in that locker room collectively nodded their heads at everything he was saying while he was sitting in front of Chris Jericho. He had the opportunity in a very dark time right now, especially in the WWE, to say what everyone wishes they could say. He had the opportunity presented to him to walk away and create a new vision for himself with people who have the same vision as he does. He will give an opportunity to everyone who wants out right now, that when their decision time comes to either stay or to go, that it won't be that difficult of a decision to make. He will give an opportunity to those who might be at their stage in life about thinking of joining the WWE for the first time. His words, I am sure, resonated with many, making them realize that there is life outside of WWE. Jon Moxley walked through hell for 5 years, having seen nightmares on a weekly basis, and came out the other side a better man for it. You look at the way he handled everything, and after arguing and bickering and trying to stand up for what he believed in, getting turned down at every single opportunity, every single notion, every single idea, every single concern that he raised to management or Vince McMahon was turned down. And he had to read scripts verbatim. He took it like a man. He sucked it up. He did what they asked. And when the time came for them to come to him and ask him if he wanted to stay, here's a new contract, he became his own man. He did what he needed to do. You look at Jon Moxley and everything that has happened to him and everything that he explained on that podcast, and then you look at the way he handled things, how can you not support a man in his shoes? How could you not be proud of what he did and how he went about doing it all? Like I said, he walked through hell for 5 years. He's seen the nightmares on a weekly basis, came out the other side a better man for it. He is standing in the light at the end of the tunnel after what probably was one of the darkest periods from a career perspective, waving his arms to everyone back in that locker room. It's going to be okay, guys. I am here. I took the leap for you all. Things will be okay. There is life outside of the WWE prison. It's great to be free again. There are not many people like him who will walk away from guaranteed money and a comfortable life because of what that aspect brings to an individual, for the opportunity to simply create, for the opportunity to continue to better yourself through your passions, for the opportunity to simply be happy. Who wants to live a life where you're suppressed, living in silence, and have all your creative drive cut out from underneath you? Why would anyone give another man the opportunity to kill a passion of yours and make you hate what you do? Make you regret doing it in the first place. Make you lie in bed, looking at the ceiling, struggling to get out of bed in the morning, feeling depressed with no drive or passion or determination. It's such a bizarre concept for people to grasp, wanting to be happy. It's always about money. Not to some, not to all. Really, I look at it that way because I've been there. I'd rather be happy than take money. But I don't understand why this is such a bizarre concept for people to grasp. Why would he walk away from the biggest wrestling promotion in the world? Why would Sasha Banks walk away from what is described as a childhood dream? Why did Neville, Pac, walk away from WWE? Why did CM Punk walk away from WWE? I respect all of them so much for doing what they did, and in Sasha's situation, continue to respect her for sticking to her guns. And no, it's not about WWE giving them a stage and the talent being ungrateful. It's a 50-50 partnership. WWE finds the talent, WWE molds the talent, WWE makes the talent into a household name that make the fans want to invest their time in, and it's WWE's job to maintain that talent and keep them happy for what should be a fruitful career. In turn, WWE, they don't do any of that. At the end of the partnership, it's more like 100-0. The talent gives WWE what they have to offer, from talent perspective, in-ring perspective, social media, to generating interest for the product, brand awareness, in-ring skill, giving WWE something that other promotions wish that they had. The talent reaps the benefits of being with the biggest wrestling promotion in the world because they've busted their ass to get here and dedicated their entire life for this opportunity. A lot of people want to jump on the talent's back and rip them for being ungrateful and say that they should grow up and do their job. Management isn't always right. I worked in retail where I had to go under the assumption of the customer is always right. No, they're not. If something that you know is wrong, you speak up about it no matter who that individual is. Because if you don't, you're not really speaking from inside. You're just simply following the orders of some fucking idiot who don't know jack shit. I hate that fucking aspect of the way people think. That partnership, like I said, from WWE to talent, that partnership turned into a one-sided one, where the talent no longer has a say and slowly starts to deteriorate. How can one do their job to the best of their ability if they are completely miserable? I don't care about binding contracts. I don't care about what the company has done for said performer. If you are not happy, you stand your ground, know your worth, and stick up for yourself. Force them to make a change. Do whatever you feel is right to make them look themselves in the mirror and say, all right, we're wrong. What could we do to fix the problem? How do you think Jon Moxley felt knowing the best WWE creative had for him was to come back randomly in the middle of a very uneventful Seth Rollins run as Intercontinental Champion? Did you all watch that return of Dean Ambrose and say, man, that was the absolute best way for WWE to bring Dean Ambrose back after being out for 9 months? No, none of you did. And if you did, you're full of shit. They proceeded to book Roman Reigns to win the Universal title from Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, and we were right back to where Ambrose was before he went out with injury. Mediocre. Then Roman Reigns goes out with leukemia, and we see the first genuine sign of what we've all wanted to see from Dean Ambrose, the heel turn. That was the night Roman Reigns announced he would be leaving and gave us hope that we will finally see Ambrose in the way that we've always envisioned. What did WWE do from that point on? Well, injections to protect himself from people like us, which was nothing more than Vince McMahon writing for someone who he really doesn't know. But if you listen to the podcast, he said that, oh, this is who you are. This is what you do. Clearly, Vince McMahon did not have a grasp on who Jonathan Good was, or what he wanted, or what was concerning him, or who the Dean Ambrose character was. And this is a man that's running the fucking company. If you don't know who Dean Ambrose is after 5 fucking years, what makes you think this guy's capable of running an entire roster of Dean Ambrose? It's fucking sad. That was Vince McMahon writing for someone who he really doesn't know in an attempt to indirectly tell us how he really feels about the WWE fans. Batman-like villain attire, being told what to do and what to say. When he told management, he strictly did not want to talk about Roman's cancer. And a complete opposite of what we all hoped for Dean Ambrose, which resulted in a wrestling match with Seth Rollins that killed everything and all credibility for said Dean Ambrose. WWE made the decision for him. He realized the ceiling above him was not going anywhere. Shield. Money, money, money. Shield reunion. Nothing more for you to accomplish. Money, money, money. Here's more money. Roman and Seth's bitch. Money, money, money. Please sign. That's all Dean Ambrose was in WWE. Roman's bitch. Then Roman comes back. All is good. Everything that we seen on WWE television was completely forgotten. Shield reunions. Then WWE puts out the bizarre press release that Jonathan Good is not re-signing his contract and he will leave WWE, and we hope that he returns one day soon. Nobody understood it. People legitimately thought this was a fucking work. That WWE put out on social media that one of their talent is leaving and not re-signing. a new WWE contract. So WWE put that out to the general public and then proceeded to try and bury Dean Ambrose in every which way that they could. Jobbing to EC3, backfired. Nia Jax, getting into a feud with Nia Jax, backfired. Not featuring him on WrestleMania, backfired. Oh, but there's the Shield. There's Roman and Seth. How can we make more money because this guy is leaving? Let's get this out there again. Third Shield reunion in, 6 months? And WWE just continued to play the same card over and over and over again. They were pretty much telling Jonathan Good, hey, we got nothing for you, but here's more money. Please stay with us. If he stayed with WWE, I would have lost all respect for Jonathan Good. Money isn't everything. Moxley even stated that he didn't sign for money because he wanted to fall in love with what he was passionate about again. He signed because he wanted to fall in love with wrestling again. That's why he's with AEW. He refused Vince and WWE to kill his first true love before he met Renee Young, of course. Wrestling was his first true love. He wanted to fall in love with it again. How can anyone find fault in that? It's insane. How anyone can listen to him speak when he says, every Monday night, I would get this sick feeling in my stomach, referencing how bad Monday Night Raw was. People found this to be an issue by attacking those who want nothing more for the WWE product to be better. People legitimately took offense to people like me in the community who stood with Moxley after saying something like that on the podcast. Those people don't want a better WWE product. That much is known. Those people don't have a fucking brain. That much is known. Those people sicken me. That much is known. We all want WWE to get better. He even said it himself. The creative process sucks. It's fucking terrible. It's killing the company. How you could watch Monday and Tuesday night and be satisfied at the end of the night, I don't know. I don't even think you're a human being at that point, let alone a fucking wrestling fan. He said the whole idea of AEW and him signing with AEW should be an eye-opener. I don't want to compete with WWE. I don't want to stick it to WWE. But what I hope does happen is that when they see what we're doing, it makes them get better. That's all we want. But there's no hiding the fact that Monday Night Raw is fucking terrible. There's no hiding the fact that WWE is dying creatively because of a vision of a 74-year-old fuck named Vince McMahon. Please, smarten up. The actions and words of Moxley, the actions and words of the community will not change Vince McMahon. We all know this. Moxley even said on Wednesday's show, Vince is going to die in the chair. We all know this. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. The WWE will probably be the way we want it when we're all dead. Vince is going to outlive us all. But when it concerns Vince McMahon, I don't understand why. Better yet, I don't understand how. I don't understand how someone in Vince thinks what he is doing is right. Monday Night Raw is one of the worst wrestling shows you could possibly watch. It is awful. It's 2019 and Vince is operating WWE as if it's a fucking joke. As if it's his own comedy show on Monday and Tuesdays, finding ways to make himself laugh at the expense of the talent. The mentality of a 74-year-old CEO is legitimately killing the company, embarrassing the company, and driving fans away to seek alternatives. When all the fans want in 2019 is a serious product, when all the performers want in this business in 2019 is a creative outlet to let their art shine through more so than financials, more so than spotlight, more so than Twitter followers. I don't understand the mentality of money, not treating your talent as a serious aspect. I don't understand the mentality of going away from all that makes sense, bypassing all of that to intentionally ruin your company. Don't WWE realize that if they concentrated on what was right, then all of the other stuff is actually going to fucking be that much better in the end? Don't you think if you continue to book your talent the way that they should be booked, with respect, shit that makes sense, making wins and losses matter, putting on quality television, don't you realize that if you do that, everything else, from financials to social media to fan interest to ratings, don't you realize that if you do what is right, all of that is going to fucking be better off for you in the end? Do what is right. The fans will see that you're trying. The fans will see that you're doing right. They will come. The fact that you take the opportunity every week to shit on the fans, the fact that you don't listen to the fans, the fact that you don't even know what the fuck is going on around you is killing the company. How doesn't anyone see this? And why doesn't anyone speak up? Vince is not a fucking emperor. He's not some fucking ruler of a land where you have to take a fucking number and speak to him. I don't understand how people in this company are so just gullible to believe that what this man says is right. I don't believe people in this company are so afraid to speak up and say what needs to be said, to tell him what needs to be done. Why hasn't it been done? I don't believe that this man's vision, I don't believe that people around him, I don't believe Vince McMahon believes that his vision is what's best for WWE. I don't. It really makes what Vince Russo said the other day, it really makes you think about what he legitimately is trying to get across. Is it really that out there? Now, I don't want to get all conspiracy on you. Is it really that far out there for him to think that AEW and WWE are in bed with one another? I don't think it's that far out there. You may think it's a fucking joke because you're a simpleton. But I see it in a completely different light. What if I want to get a little conspiracy theory on you? What if I want to go out there and venture into the what ifs? What if Vince Russo and his mentality is right? WWE name-dropped AEW through a Sami Zayn electric chair promo on Monday Night Raw. That accomplished nothing but bringing awareness to AEW. They didn't take a cheap shot at AEW. They didn't take a cheap shot at Cody. They didn't do anything. They mentioned All Elite Wrestling and the name of AEW on their WWE program on Monday night, on their flagship show. Why did they do that? They only drive Google search for AEW through the fucking roof. But why did they do that? If Vince McMahon is so wanting to get back at AEW or show AEW how they really operate, wouldn't he have put on a good show? I don't understand the mentality of Vince McMahon sitting around not wanting to combat AEW and what they did with Double or Nothing. If that is the best that they got on Monday night, who's to say Vince Russo was wrong? Because I know a normal human being would watch Saturday night and see what the competitor is doing, and then come Monday night, oh, okay, we got you one. Well, we'll do you one better, man. This is the best that they got on Monday night. That's the way WWE answers All Elite Wrestling from Saturday night. Memorial Day or not, it's fucking embarrassing. Who's to say Vince Russo was wrong? What if Vince Russo was right? What if AEW and WWE are in bed with one another? What if WWE threw out the initials AEW on purpose? Who knows AEW outside of the smart mark community in the pro wrestling Twitter? Who knows AEW outside of WWE? The majority of their audience don't even know what AEW means. WWE name-dropped AEW on their show to bring awareness to All Elite Wrestling. When they do that, they drive interest to AEW. Oh, they're coming to TNT in the fall. I'm going to be interested in watching this. Chris Jericho is here, and Dean Ambrose is now here. What is this? Jim Ross is on commentary. What if they did that to drive audience to AEW in October on TNT? The more that they do that and the more that they bring awareness to AEW, their ratings go up, right? And then all of a sudden we're in the midst of another Monday Night War. AEW's ratings go up, Fans from AEW are going to drive themselves to watch WWE to see how they retaliate. Maybe WWE puts on better shows because of AEW. Now AEW has an audience and WWE is forced to make a better show. Ratings on Raw go up, ratings on AEW go up, and they slowly start going up, creating a ratings war between wrestling and making wrestling popular again. It's not that far out there. It really is not that far out there. So who are you to say Vince Russo is fucking wrong? They could very well be in bed with one another. Who the fuck knows? Because all I know is, if I'm WWE, I'm making no mention of AEW on my fucking show, especially in the way that they went about it on Monday night. Nothing will change. Nothing will change. The change has to come from within. If Vince wants to change, then Vince is going to change. After Monday night, we know for a fact that Vince is not going to change. Jon Moxley said exactly what we were all thinking. I've been saying this for the last 5 years. I tell you, man, where the fuck is everybody that has been claiming that I'm negative? I don't know what I'm talking about. Your beloved Dean Ambrose, a member of The Shield, who stood next to Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins on weekly television for 5 years, has left WWE and has expressed firsthand what happens in WWE creative. And then you look back at what I've said for the last 5 years. Have I been that far off? The answer is no. Where are you guys today? Are you criticizing me about what I've been doing and what I've been saying? No. Because you knew I was right all along, and you just showed yourself to be unintelligent. Vince McMahon is not going to change. The mentality of a 74-year-old CEO is legitimately killing the company when all the wrestlers want is a creative outlet to let their art shine through more so than anything else. Why are there so many limitations on the product, on the talent? When you really look at what the fucking show is, it's nothing more than a wrestling show. Good guy versus bad guy. Wins and losses. Championships. Make them mean something. Don't burden the commentary to sound completely unnatural and forced. Write good storylines. That's all you need to do. Why is Vince McMahon getting in the way and putting a damper on what should be a great time in professional wrestling? If he stood and took a look at everything and seen the landscape of change that is going on right now in the industry, he should be excited. But because it doesn't have Vince McMahon's stamp on it, none of us could have fun. It's all about sports entertainment. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. We'll find entertainment through what AEW is doing. We'll find entertainment in a very sports-directed program on TNT in October. That's the way I want to be entertained. Vince McMahon is entertained by having Dean Ambrose mention pooper scoopers on WWE television. Vince McMahon is entertained by throwing Roman Reigns' cancer or the struggles of a cancer patient under the bus, making lighthearted jokes about the cancer through Dean Ambrose to try and tell a story when he was completely against it. That's Vince McMahon's version of entertainment. Meanwhile, all it's doing is killing the company. WWE creative sucks. Change it. It's killing the company. Vince McMahon is killing the company. When you look back at those words that were uttered on Talk is Jericho, those are the most powerful words that you will hear in wrestling 2019. Seriously. It's not going to do anything. But man, am I glad for someone who was there for 5 years to go out on a podcast as big as Jericho's and explain to the world what WWE creative really is and how it's killing the company. One could hope that someone in that company is listening to that podcast and wanting change. Will it happen? The answer is no. That's why we have AEW. I can't wait to see what they do. And him leaving holds more value and is bigger than any of you really realize. And I can't wait for that to be unveiled sooner rather than later. This is Off the Script. We'll get into everything that he said. We're going to dissect the entire podcast right here on episode 276. This is part number 1. Don't go anywhere. So much more right here on Off the Script.
You know, one thing, that I want to do is because, if I have something to prove, it's that I want to prove that your creative process, the WWE's creative process, sucks. It does not work. It's absolutely terrible. And I've said that to Vince. I've said that to Hunter. I've said that to Michael. Hey, I think that whatever, I can't even tell you how their system works. It's some kind of system of meetings that take place in Stamford, and there's a home team. There's writers and producers and production meetings, and nobody knows what's approved and what's not, and the bureaucratic red tape you have to go through to get anything approved.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It doesn't work. It's killing the company, I think. And I think Vince is the problem. And not so much Vince, but Vince and whatever the structure that he built around himself, probably starting in I'd imagine 2002, after the sale of WCW.
Right.
And he started building this infrastructure around himself, this team of writers and whatever, and producers, and however he does it. And this is how WWE is, and this is what the product is. The product sucks. Great talent, amazing talent. None of this is their fault, So I'm hoping, if I had a goal with AEW, it's that we could prove that Vince's way sucks. This is not what I'm going to focus on, because it's not about competing with WWE. I don't think that's any of our...
Yeah. It's an alternative.
It's any of our mission.
Yeah.
We're just going to be over here doing our best, putting on our best product. And if a byproduct of that is it pushes WWE to reevaluate their creative process, and it makes Vince, not that he's going to step aside, we all know he's going to die in the chair, but maybe he'll listen to somebody else's ideas. Maybe he'll be open and do it in a different way.
Maybe he won't micromanage everything so much. I think that's the biggest problem.
I've never been micromanaged more than I was in the last 4 months. Once I turned heel, it was so weird.
5, delete! This is Mark.
What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining me right here on Off the Script. It is Friday, May 31st, 2019. This is episode 276. I gotta admit, I'm missing the Caesars Palace background behind me, like it was last week on 275. Not that I don't have an issue with Sephiroth there. I love me my Sephiroth flag, but nothing beats Las Vegas with Caesars Palace behind you. And man, I could really use one of them Fat Tuesday pina coladas with an extra shot of tequila. That's just me. Maybe one day soon we'll be back out there, but regardless of that, man, I'm happy to be back home. I'm happy to be back home in the office talking about WWE, Jon Moxley in this case, All Elite Wrestling, Jon Moxley making a splash and just setting the wrestling world on fire on Wednesday afternoon with his podcast on Talk is Jericho. We're going to go over everything detailed. I got the entire transcript of what he went into detail about. Bad scripts, the feud with EC3, the day he knew he was leaving, why he almost walked out of WWE, the pay that he got from that Final Shield reunion that they filmed for the network at the house show. We're going to go over it all right here on the podcast. Plus, my thoughts on AEW being referenced by Sami Zayn on Monday Night Raw. People legitimately brain dead in the community thinking it was legit. Unreal. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you or where they grow you. Because if that was legit, Sami Zayn wouldn't have a job anymore. We'll talk about that as well right here on the podcast. If you missed anything that I uploaded this week, we went over it on Monday. Vince clearly not worried about AEW as he has Sami Zayn name drop AEW on Raw. Got back from Vegas, went right into the studio, man. Went right into the office. Backstage, Double or Nothing news and rumors. Everything you need to know following Double or Nothing. Roman in yet another main event. We stood our ground. Didn't even watch it. Oh, but JD, there was a 24/7 title change. Who gives a flying fuck? If you are still on the 24/7 cock, you're a complete fucking idiot. NXT TakeOver 25 predictions on Wednesday. And if you guys want to go check my interview with Private Party, House of Glory's former House of Glory mainstay tag team. Now they're in AEW. They were at Double or Nothing in the Casino Battle Royale. I had an interview with them at Starrcast. Make sure you guys go and check it out. Conveniently, during the interview, MJF was kicked out of Starrcast. Happened live, unscripted. We didn't know it was happening. It's there. Very entertaining interview with both Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. And I wish those guys nothing but major success in AEW. Go and check all that stuff out. Link will be in the top right corner. That little eye that you see in the top right corner, drop that bitch down. Everything you need is right there. Make sure you guys follow me on social media at JD from NY206. That's both on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on that bell for all notifications. Patreon.com/JD from NY206. Completely optional. Completely up to you. If you guys want to show your appreciation, it's there. And you get exclusive content as a thank you. I gotta shout out Daryl. I know he's listening because he was in the fucking Twitch stream the other day when I wanted to play some Black Ops 4 late in the night. I couldn't sleep. I had no beer in the house. Let me jump on Call of Duty. I gotta shout out Daryl, man. Not only did he donate $50 via the stream, but he also donated 10,000 bits on Twitch. Now, bits are Twitch's version of currency, and each bit is a cent. So he donated 10,000 of them. And man, what a generous offer. That is the most I have ever received, and that's the most I've ever personally seen anyone donate to a live stream. I don't really watch much Twitch, but Daryl, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it. And as long as I can continue to provide you with quality entertainment where other things and other aspects of life don't bother you so much, I mean this wholeheartedly, man. And I mean this not only for Daryl, but for everybody else. If I can sit here for 4 hours during a weekend and take away whatever is bothering you and make sure that you guys are okay for the 4 or 5 hours that I'm here so you don't have to worry about anything else, that means the world to me, man. That really means the world to me. That is the most important aspect of why I do what I do. So, Daryl, thank you so very much, man. I really appreciate you being a part of my elite, and that is exactly what you are, man. You're a part of my elite. Make sure you guys go and check out my newest sponsor, man. I am proud to welcome the Ridge Wallet, theridge.com/script. You're going to use code SCRIPT at checkout for 10% off. You know, one of the more difficult things for me to do is go out and shop for a wallet. I'm not the type of guy that's going to go out and buy a designer wallet and spend all this types of money on something with some stupid brand name logo on it. I'm not that type of guy. I usually go into the mall. I walk into Hot Topic. Oh, this Legend of Zelda wallet looks cool. Oh, this Metallica wallet looks cool. Oh, this Super Mario wallet looks cool. I'm that type of guy because it's very indicative of me and my personality and my interests. Now, I want you guys to look in your wallet. Better yet, I want you to go out for an afternoon with your father, and I want you to take a very close look at his wallet, because I know I did the same thing. I know my dad did the same thing. Look in your wallet. What do you have in your wallet right now? What does your dad have in his wallet right now? Guarantee you have old receipts for when you took the wife out for dinner 3 months ago for your anniversary. Guarantee you got old hotel room keys in your wallet. Guarantee you got business cards and contact numbers on some small piece of paper that you don't even remember who they are or where you were when you exchanged this information. You're looking at your dad and you're thinking to yourself, I gotta get my dad a new wallet for Father's Day. I present to you, right here on Off the Script, the Ridge Wallets. It was actually created by a father and son team. There's the Father's Day correlation. A father and son team who value reliability in their everyday gear. They're making everyday goods that turn the things that you carry, like backpacks, chargers, wallets, into tools for better living. The flagship product of the Ridge is indeed the Ridge Wallet. It was launched on a Kickstarter in 2013 and now sits in the front pockets of 750,000 men and women, including myself. And I want you guys to think about your fathers on this coming Father's Day. Over 30,000 5-star reviews, and it's more than likely what your dad will love this Father's Day. When he thinks of Father's Day and the gifts that he's gotten, he's going to remember that you got him the Ridge wallets. If he doesn't like it, 45 days you have to return the wallet if he does not like the product. The Ridge wallet was actually started by Daniel Kane and his dad, Paul, proof that the utility of the minimalist wallet can span generations. Now, I want you guys to look closely at the screen that you see right here on Off the Script. You guys can save 10% off today with worldwide free shipping by going to ridge.com/scripts. Once again, that's ridge.com/script. Use the code SCRIPT. Link is down in the description below. There's a lifetime warranty. If your dad does not love it, again, free returns in case he doesn't. It comes in titanium, carbon fiber, aluminum, and over a dozen different styles and colors. I got the titanium because I love it and it feels fantastic. Once again, guys, free worldwide shipping this Father's Day, 10% off, ridge.com/script. What do you guys say we continue the Jon Moxley dissection of WWE Creative? I think that sounds like a good idea today on episode 276 of the podcast. I think that's a good idea. Let's start off here, man. We got a lot to get into, and I transcribed this whole thing from various sites and various sources, so it's a lot, and we're going to go over it all. I want to start at the top, man. Jon Moxley on dealing with bad scripts in WWE. How do you deal with a bad script in WWE? Do you usually reach for the remote control and change the channel? What are you watching? Maybe a basketball game, basketball playoffs are going on, maybe the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Or maybe guys' grocery games. Maybe they're cooking a nice Italian meal. Extra cheese. Maybe you like seafood. Maybe you're watching HGTV and you're watching Property Brothers, man. Watching them redo a kitchen and wonder to yourself, will I ever have a kitchen that looks that nice? Man, I could use some more space in my closet. How does Jon Moxley deal with bad scripts in WWE? Well, he says this to Chris Jericho. These are things that an idiot would likely do, along the lines of driving backwards on the street, or on a unicycle, or sharing a pizza with a homeless man on the street. Just weird stuff like that. Now, he's mentioning this stuff because Moxley said things were written for him to say. And it wasn't any normal thing anyone would want to do with their day. They went to him and says, well, we're going to have you describe what you did during your day. And he was like, well, you want me to say these things, but I'm looking at it and it's like, why would anyone want to have a beer with me after this? I don't look cool, let alone something that would make you root for me. So he went about this stuff and he was telling Jericho exactly some of the scripts that they would present him. Well, today you're going to be at Raw and you're going to go over all the things that you did today, and that's what you're going to do. He says these are things that idiots would most likely do. Sharing a pizza with a homeless man on the street, just weird shit like that. So I'm like, I'm not saying any of that. Just rewrite it, change it to something. Vince goes and redoes it and puts all the stuff that I want taken out back in. Now I'm like, God, I have to now go talk to Vince. If you can't get through without it getting in there, now Vince has to rewrite it himself, and now it's out of the writer's hands. I got to go in and talk to Vince myself. I'm like, I can't say all this stuff. It's ridiculous. And he's like, oh, it's such good shit. this stuff. This is the reason why people like you. This is the reason why they connect with you. It's because you're different. And this is you. This is you. He goes on to continue and say, I've had a million conversations with Vince McMahon that were almost the exact same kind of conversation about similar promos or that kind of thing. This is such good shit. This is what makes you, you. And I said, so I'm an idiot. So he says, no, it's you. You're different. And I'm standing there saying, okay. So he summed this up simply in terms of the bad scripts. Vince really thought that he was an idiot. That had nothing to do with the Dean Ambrose character. Nothing. And I'm assuming this is something that happened when he had come back from injury, because I think he just detailed the last 4 or 5 months. You know, clearly he was out. His direction was kind of stale at that point. He came back and unceremoniously they put him right back with Seth Rollins. Meanwhile, WWE had the opportunity to really build something around Dean Ambrose and make him different than the last time we seen him, and they just didn't do it. And how clueless is Vince McMahon, knowing that you got Dean Ambrose here, and you are stuck on this cheesy, hokey bullshit, and Vince McMahon is standing there in front of Dean Ambrose saying, this is you. This is going to get you over with the crowd. It's you. You're different. Clearly, Vince McMahon let me rephrase that, did not ever understand Dean Ambrose. And look at how lowly he thought of Dean Ambrose for him to do that with him. Would he have ever given that to Seth Rollins? Would he have ever given that to Roman Reigns? The answer is no. From what I can gather here, underneath everything that he said in this podcast, Jon Moxley was looked at as a fucking joke. Jon Moxley was looked at as a third wheel in this Shield discussion. And now he's gone. And now Vince McMahon's going to be watching or hearing. I don't think he's physically going to be watching. He's always going to hear it from a third party about what AEW is doing. Because according to Vince McMahon, there is no competition, especially right now. And I'll touch on that a little later. But they're going to look at Jon Moxley over in AEW, and they're going to regret everything that they've ever given him to say and given him to do. 74 years old. This is what he thinks of his talent. This is how in sync and in tune with what is going on. Doesn't know a fucking thing if this is what you're presenting to Dean Ambrose. Jon Moxley revealed the day he knew he was leaving WWE. Now, he said he actually almost walked out of WWE because even though he knew that he wanted to leave in July of 2018, this was while he was out. This is while he was out with injury. It was a long time coming. He wasn't going to quit, ask for his release, or try to get fired. He didn't want to do any of that because his wife, Renee Young, works for the WWE, and he said it wouldn't have been fair to put her in a position of awkwardness. Goes to show you the quality of human being that he is, that he sucked it up, and he battled through all of this bullshit because his main concern was Renee Young. He said that he can remember getting out his phone and actually starting to count down the days until his contract was up during a Raw in Los Angeles. Moxley was a heel, and he was experiencing a very low point in his character's development just before WWE stuck him with a gimmick that some fans refer to as the Ambrose Bane period, where he went to the ring dressed as a Batman villain. Man, I think I just got fucking brain tumors just rethinking that entire situation. After fighting with Vince McMahon about a pooper scooper line and being convinced to take a shot at Roman Reigns' leukemia situation on the same night, he leaned on a road case backstage and was physically exhausted. Physically and mentally exhausted. This is when he knew he wanted out because of 6 years of trying to convince Vince McMahon why his ideas were stupid. Vince would always come back saying that Dean had a creative license to do what he wants because it's you. This is when Mox had to wonder what kind of creative license he was talking about because all the Lunatic Fringe could do is recite the lines given to him by WWE management. Ambrose says when the show was over, he got out of the building and made it to the hotel before he needed a drink because he had to fight all night and nothing ever got accomplished. He mentioned that. I got to the fucking hotel room and all I wanted to do was drink. And he looked back. The pain in someone's eyes, man, that I could fucking visualize. Just putting myself in his shoes. After everything that they put him through with this bullshit. Going back to the hotel room, feeling unsatisfied. Like, he looked back on Monday Night Raw, and he thought, what the fuck did we get accomplished tonight? How am I a better person after tonight? How is my character and career a better person and a better situation after tonight? There's no way that it could be. That's like me working retail. This is why I admire Punk and what he did. This is why I admire what Sasha Banks is currently doing right now. This is why I admire Jon Moxley and what he said on the Jericho podcast on Wednesday. You know, I used to work retail. And yeah, I got a base salary. It wasn't much because most of the pay that you would earn would come on commission. And the management would always be like, oh, there's sales. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's an event going on. You're going to make mega money in commission. The people coming in, right? The customers will be coming on in. You'll have your client book filled up by the end of the day. All this bullshit to kind of get you excited and get your hopes up. And then by the end of the day, you're standing there with no fucking sales and no commission. The train ride home for me was fucking depressing. Knowing I had to fucking hop on the train, go home, and I didn't want to do anything but fucking cry. Legitimately break down and cry. And my attitude, the way I felt then, was affecting everybody around me. This is why I admire what he did. This is why I admired, you know, guys like Punk and Sasha Banks doing what she's doing. Listening to Moxley talk about this, man, you know, it hits home because everybody's been through that similar situation. You want to be satisfied at the end of the night. When you go to sleep at the end of the night, you want to be like, yeah, man, I had a good day. I can't wait for what's to come. I'm so excited about what's to come. Meanwhile, he's going to the fucking hotel room asking himself what the fuck got accomplished. All I want is a goddamn fucking Jack and Coke. Make it 4. Triple shot. Sad. Ambrose says, former WWE superstars who used to take shots at the current roster for not taking the chance of fighting for what they believe in because they're afraid of getting fired. He did mention this. He says, and I quote, I've never been afraid of getting fired, and I'm not saying that because I'm so good or anything. I just felt like I never felt like me speaking up is going to lead to me being fired. I just never had that fear. I've always gone and given my opinion on everything, you know? My idea is I'm going to try and convince you that my idea is better. And that's the way you should have. You know, that's the ideas you should have. That's the way you should be presenting yourself. And a lot of people don't do that. This is why I don't understand why people don't fucking stick up for what's going on. Is Vince McMahon the almighty God? Is he going to fucking send you to purgatory? Is he going to fucking send you to death row? If you agree or disagree rather with what's going on? If you fight him on something, is he going to execute you right there? I don't understand this shit. Sometimes people look at it in a way where if you stand up for yourself and you fucking present yourself in a way where you know you're right and someone else is wrong, they have a little bit more respect for you. Now, I don't work around Vince McMahon, but I don't know why people are so afraid to stand their ground when they know something is fucked up. He was never afraid of getting fired. I'm going to convince you that my idea is better, but if I can't convince you of that, then you're the guy that writes my checks, and I'm not going to be a complainer. I'm going to try and make the best out of all of this. Moxley then said, if I can't convince you that I shouldn't go to the ring eating a Cuban sandwich, then screw it. I'm going to make eating a Cuban sandwich look cool, and I'm going to have mustard on my face, and people will be like, damn, he pulled that off better than anyone else could. Moxley was able to take what WWE gave him and gave him to say for years until he finally just snapped and couldn't take it anymore. Now, Jon Moxley also talked about the weird press release announcing his exit from the company. He did mention this, and a lot of people actually thought it was a work, and people continued to think it was a work, all through him being somewhat buried on WWE television. People honestly thought that the trailer for his re-debut on the Indies was a work. People legitimately thought that this was him coming back to the WWE or him showing up in WWE under a new name. Why would they take everything that they've built and promoted with Dean Ambrose, throw it away for something that the majority of the fans have no fucking clue of? People were fucking stupid. Absolutely stupid. It's so bizarre. People are like, this is the press release, and I'm like, that's awesome. It's never been done before. All that ever happens is that they wish you the best in your future endeavors. It's unprecedented. It was like a glowing review. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'm not going to say anything. What I think happened was they were getting backlash or whatever. I don't know the motivation behind that press release, but that's why a lot of people thought it was all a work. Because they want to control the narrative. That's the thing with Vince. Vince hated this entire situation. That's why it's so bizarre and so many ups and downs, because he has no control. I told him, I don't care how many zeros you want to put on a piece of paper. I am gone. And he's got the $1 million man complex. He's got to be able to buy everyone. That's why he pays Brock Lesnar billions of dollars to come in and ruin his company, because he wants to own Brock. He wants to be like, Brock's my attraction. You know? And how could you listen to him say that and not agree with every fucking word that he just uttered? That is absolutely true. Vince hates when he cannot control the narrative. This is why we see him do what he does with NXT. Triple H is creating in NXT, and Vince, he has no control over any... Well, he does. If he wanted to, he could. He signs the fucking paychecks, but he left that in charge of Triple H. Triple H has been there, and he can't willingly go in there and fuck everything up, because everybody's going to know what the fuck's going on anyway. Triple H has presented a certain product, and if he doesn't maintain that certain product and deliver every single fucking time, then there'll be an issue. Because we know what to expect with Triple H at NXT. If Vince comes in and muddies Triple H up and NXT up and the vision of NXT up, then people are going to know what the fuck's going on. Because we've been blessed with damn near perfection with everything in NXT. If somehow the quality dipped off, then I think it's going to be very easy to figure out what the fuck's going on. But this is exactly why he does what he does with NXT. The entire Aleister Black, War Machine, Ricochet, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and everybody else that he called up from NXT that didn't do a goddamn fucking thing, that will continue to just waste away on the main roster due to WWE creative. Vince hates it when something is buzzing in the company, or something is really taking off, or something is popular, or something is really getting over, and people are talking about NXT. It happened with SmackDown Live. It happened with SmackDown Live. Ryan Ward and Road Dogg were writing for SmackDown Live in 2016. I mentioned this time and time and time again. That's probably a better example than the NXT one I was going to give you guys. Vince McMahon doesn't control NXT. Things are taking off and things are getting around. Oh, it's popular, it's buzzing, it's better than the main roster. Vince, he can't stand that. So he's got to get his hands on it, and he's got to control the narrative. It can't get too out of control to a point where it's going to make Vince McMahon look bad. That's exactly what he did with SmackDown Live. SmackDown Live in 2016, from the draft all the way up till December of that year, SmackDown was booking better shows than Monday Night Raw, and people on social media were absolutely expressing that in every which way that they could. Vince clearly didn't like that. He took over. And it was reported that Vince McMahon was going to concentrate on Raw and give SmackDown its own identity, and let Triple H and Stephanie and maybe Shane and the writers take control of that show. It's going to be more like an incubation process. You're going to incubate an egg, and it's going to blossom, and then that talent over there will be ready, giving them the opportunity to grow and get storylines out there and show them what they're really made of, and then you'll get promoted to Monday Night Raw. That was the whole process behind SmackDown Live. And then Vince McMahon started to see that SmackDown Live was putting on better shows than Monday Night Raw, and said, I can't have that. I can't have that. I got to get in there, and I got to control everything. I got to control the narrative, and fuck everything else. That's exactly what he did. How you can listen to Moxley tell you that Vince McMahon wants to control the narrative. He wants to be in control of everything, and he hates when he has no control. This is why Brock Lesnar knows Vince McMahon better than anybody. He's going to pull away at the slightest and attempt to go somewhere else. And Vince is so bent on controlling the narrative that he'll throw Brock Lesnar more money than he should really be throwing Brock Lesnar, just for the simple fact that Brock Lesnar remains a priority on WWE. Brock is my property. I own him. I'm paying him. Fuck everybody else. That is a terrible way to go about business. That is an absolute terrible way to go about business. Suddenly, Vince McMahon found himself working with a man who had no power over, who he had no power over in Jon Moxley, because Jon never looked at his new contract before handing it back to them while saying he's not interested. Jericho asked him, so what did you do with the new contract that they offered you? They offered you one. You told them that you were leaving. They offered you another one in hopes that you stayed. Did you ever look at the new contract? He's like, no, I never looked at it. I didn't even bother looking at it. I didn't care. At that point, I knew I was gone, and nothing that they could tell me was going to change my mind. Ambrose also wondered what he would do with $10 million. Theoretically, if they offered him $10 million, what the fuck would I do with $10 million? He mentioned his truck is paid off, his house is paid off, his mother's house is paid off. What am I going to go? Am I going to go out and buy a Maserati? I don't live that way. I don't spend my money that way. Money is not an issue to me. All I want is to fucking live my life and be creatively satisfied. Wow, what a fucking concept. He doesn't live that lavish lifestyle. He didn't need that much money. Even if WWE offered it to him, he wouldn't take it. He said there's no number they could have written down that could convince him to stay with the WWE. He went through a physical depression because they took it away. He took that love away. Vince did. And he didn't love what he did anymore. There's no need to come up with promos, matches, or stories because WWE pays people to come up with all that stuff. So you're pretty much saying, you're an artist, but we're not allowing you to be artistic. That's fucking terrible. That is awful. How could anyone live their life that way? Because you're being compensated, you're being paid. You're a slave at that point. I mean, I don't understand that shit. It's like, and some of you might not get this reference, but I'm big into music. I really, music is a huge part of who I am. I need music in my life. I listened, back in high school, I listened to the whole fucking heavy metal thing. I was involved with the heavy metal community, finding new bands and what was hot. Back in the time when it was Korn and Limp Bizkit and Slipknot coming onto the scene with their debut album, you put that motherfucker in, the first thing you hear is the song Sick. I remember my dad's facial expressions when he came down to the fucking basement and I'm blasting Sick on the radio. He's like, what the fuck is this shit? Then you get into other bands, Fear Factory, Soulfly. I remember I was a huge fan of Machine Head. Rob Flynn is one of the most talented guitarists on the planet. He may be a dick, and Machine Head may be in shambles right now, but that's a completely different story, but I'm looking forward to them re-recording Burn My Eyes. But Rob Flynn, one of the most talented musicians that you could possibly find on the planet. Machine Head had their debut album, Burn My Eyes. One of the most classic albums that you will find in the genre. It's heralded as one of the greatest albums ever written in the genre. Landmark album. They went from that to The More Things Change, and then they went to The Burning Red. Now, The Burning Red was a new metal album. The Burning Red was something that Roadrunner Records had, I'm assuming Roadrunner Records wanted this change because Limp Bizkit and Korn and Slipknot and Cold Chamber and Soulfly and Sepultura, they were all doing the new metal thing, right? OTEP, whatever the fuck was around during that time period. So Roadrunner was like, we got to get on board. All the kids are listening to the new metal. You can't be playing that heavy metal shit. You can't be having thrash. You can't be having guitar solos. You gotta get the groovy shit in there. You gotta be rapping, rap metal, new metal. They took Machine Head from Burn My Eyes to fucking The Burning Red, and it was, and still is, a fucking sore spot on the band's career. Album was fucking terrible. And then what did they do after that? They went right back, and they were right back to the old Machine Head. How the fuck can you stand there and get orders from a record label This is what you gotta do. I don't want to fucking do this shit. I don't want to write this garbage. I want to write a fucking continuation of what we did with the Burning Red. Seriously, go look it up. If you're not into metal, if you're not into that type of thing, go listen to the Burning Red. Listen to the Burning Red and realize how fucking terrible it is compared to Burn My Eyes. Awful. You're handcuffing creative. You're telling someone to not be artistic. I hate that. I really, 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 really fucking hate that. He went through physical depression. I know, I've been there. I've been there. I couldn't be myself working in retail, man. I couldn't be there. I went through physical fucking depression. I legitimately was at one point in my life where I wanted to fucking just die. Like, how could I live this life for the rest of my life? Something needs to change. Why me? And I found other outlets to fucking suppress my depression. Whether it be playing Destiny with the guys and raiding in Destiny or playing Call of Duty. You know? I shut everybody out. I ruined relationships. I shut my family out. I shut my friends out. I wasn't a man. I felt like I was just being beaten down to a point where I didn't even want to live anymore. And I took it out on everybody else. That's why I did what I did. And here I sit today. It's the best decision I've ever made. I don't have to answer to nobody. And man, it resonates. When he speaks and when he's describing all this shit, it resonates because I've been there. That's why I respect him even more so now than I did before. And I wasn't even the biggest Dean Ambrose guy. But I knew what they were fucking doing to him. I knew that what they were doing to him on TV was wrong. It wasn't right. Jon Moxley revealed when he almost walked out of WWE. So, he was getting rabies shots. He was calling the fans disgusting. Moxley said that he replied to the writer saying, "I fucking hate that." To which the writer says, "Yeah, I know." So, what that means to me is that the writer is not writing for Dean Ambrose. He's writing for Vince McMahon. Because if the writer himself told Dean Ambrose, "Yeah, I know this sucks," that's coming directly from Vince McMahon, because why would that writer write something for Dean Ambrose that he knows is fucking terrible? I wouldn't write anything that is terrible and say, "Yeah, it came from me." As he's approaching me saying, "I fucking hate that," it came directly from Vince McMahon. How terrible is that? He wasn't very happy about arriving to the building that day for Raw, but by the time he showed up, word had already gotten out that he didn't like his segment. Vince McMahon approached him and said that he heard Dean wasn't very excited about the promo. Ambrose didn't lie. He hated the goofy crap. He had been butting heads with Vince McMahon about this since February. Jon Moxley said they handed him a script and then he got herded into a sexual harassment meeting. I don't know what was going on at the time. I don't really recall, but I want to say, I'm going to take a shot in the dark here. It might have been something to do with Toni Storm. I'm not sure. I think it was around that time where Toni Storm had pictures revealed on social media or online. I'm not really sure what that whole sexual harassment meeting was about, but I'm taking a shot in the dark. I really don't know. I'm just kind of thinking back to the timeline because I know that happened around the same time. And he was sitting in this meeting and he was seething the entire time that he had to sit through that mandatory meeting for the roster. However, after the meeting before Ambrose could get to McMahon, a writer intercepted Dean Ambrose and said that McMahon wanted to see him and make sure that he knew his segment is not comedy. So he says this, and I quote, "So Vince anticipated that I was coming to storm into his office and go, 'Why am I doing all this prop comedy all the time?' Because I've been having the same argument with him for like a year now." So he went to Vince's office where McMahon tried to convince him that the promo wasn't comedy. Vince said, "This is such good stuff. It's so well written and it's going to get you a ton of heat." End quote. Moxley said that he was doing more carrot top prop comedy, to which McMahon said there were no props. And then Ambrose replied in the same way that I would fucking reply, "Then what is the actor that you hired to play the doctor? What is the giant syringe? Is that not a prop?" I had a feeling in my head that this was the last time I had to say this to Vince McMahon, and I had to say this to him a bunch of times. I'm the best man for the job because because like I always do when you throw me crazy curveballs, I pull this stuff off. I know I can do it. So I'm going to do what I always do, and I'm going to give my absolute best effort to make this good. If anybody can, it's me. And I kind of knew this was the last time I'd have to say this to him. He's like, I know you will now. Get out of here, you scamp. So he was pretty much, yeah, I know you're going to get it over. Now get out of here, you scamp. Those were the exact words that Moxley used in this podcast. So we go do our thing. It's awful, you know. I can't save it. We were able to pre-tape it. It got greenlit by Vince. Everyone's high-fiving me like, oh, Vince loved it. It's great. So I was able to get out that night. I couldn't have gotten out of that building faster. Early in the day, I was like, I got to walk out. I remember having a feeling of dizziness, like my stomach, weird feelings in my stomach, in the pit of my stomach. And I remember talking to some of my friends like, I can't work here. What is this? What are they doing? It's so embarrassing, like actual dizziness. It's like, I can't believe all of this is happening. So I bolt out of there and I go into the airport and I sit down at the bar in the airport, and it's just like, I'm so depressed because I was like, that might be the thing. That is enough. I can't do it anymore. End quote. Moxley said he was always afraid of doing a segment that his character in WWE couldn't recover from. He thought getting a series of shots in a doctor's office on Raw might have been the segment that killed his character. And it did. It really did. He was always able to recover in the past, but he thought that he might not be able to come back from that one. That promo actually had a line about Roman Reigns, but Moxley refused to say it. He said it was so bad he wouldn't even repeat it on the podcast. And Jericho, he mentioned to Jericho that he would tell him off air. I don't know. I don't even remember what it was. Clearly, we don't remember what it was because he didn't say it. But anything that he mentioned with Roman was just fucking outlandish anyway. And it would have been something where someone would have gotten fired over it. They might have lost sponsors like Susan G. Komen. He said whoever wrote it should be ashamed of themselves. But if he would have to say the line, it would have been on him and not on Vince McMahon. So I don't know how anybody could look at him and say that he's wrong, because if Vince McMahon put that line in there that he didn't want to say and he said it, it wouldn't be on Vince McMahon because he's the one saying it. He's on screen in front of the camera on our televisions. It would be like, oh, fuck Dean Ambrose, Thankfully, Vince McMahon didn't force Ambrose to say the line about Roman Reigns' leukemia. However, it didn't keep Ambrose from hating any of this any less. Now, Jon Moxley on Vince McMahon tricking him into taking a shot at Roman Reigns' leukemia on Raw. He told the story one night on Raw when he was supposed to appear on screen multiple times throughout the night. This was the same night where he dropped that first mention of Roman Reigns' leukemia, but he did so because he was sidetracked from getting other lines changed to worry about the verbiage that was being the one that was most damaging. Moxley said the words given to him in his first promo didn't make sense, and they were written in typical WWE promo with big words that are out of place and didn't do anything to drive home a character's vision. He says it was hot garbage and awful crap are the main words that he used here. The main gist of it was that people are smelly, disgusting people, and they very likely came from Vince McMahon. This is exactly what I mentioned in the open. This is exactly what Vince McMahon thinks of the fan base of the company. This isn't Vince McMahon writing for Dean Ambrose. This isn't Dean Ambrose. This is Vince McMahon and what Vince McMahon thinks of the fucking fans of WWE. Meanwhile, Vince McMahon is there trying to manipulate Dean Ambrose and thinking that this is you. This is going to get you over. This is going to get you real heat. Meanwhile, Vince McMahon is really letting you know indirectly how he feels through Dean Ambrose. Now, the former Dean Ambrose said something that really caught his eye. It caught everybody's eye during the most outlandish thing he thought in this entire promo. A joke about a pooper scooper. Like something along the lines of, I'm not going out there with a pooper scooper or something like that. He didn't really remember what the fucking exact line was. So I'm like, I'm not saying that. I'm like, did Vince write this? They're like, we don't know who wrote it. Now, that could be interpreted as, well, maybe Vince did write it, or maybe the writer did write it, or someone on the writing team did write it to appease Vince McMahon, but he didn't really want to out himself in front of Dean Ambrose, because who the fuck knows what type of attitude he would have took. I'm not writing this. I'm not saying this. Whatever the fuck you wrote, I'm not saying it. More than likely it came from Vince McMahon, because Vince McMahon has a history of laughing over toilet humor and shit jokes. Clearly, just look at Drake Maverick and AOPP, and then Bobby Roode's robe being flushed down the toilet with Drake Maverick pissing on his robe. So this is more than likely something that came from Vince McMahon, because poo-poo scoopers are equivalent to shit. Vince McMahon loves toilet humor and shit and piss jokes. Like he's a fucking 4-year-old child. So, he said the trick to get the script rewritten without the pooper scooper line was to get it to Vince before he sees the actual pooper scooper line, because if he sees it, he will love it and say, that's such good shit. So maybe it really didn't come from Vince McMahon, but it certainly did have Vince McMahon influence, because the writer was writing for Vince McMahon because he thought Vince McMahon would think it's funny. He wasn't writing for Dean Ambrose. Which is why I don't understand. There should be specific segments in which the creative writing team sit down with the talent that they're writing for to get insight on what the talent is, what the character is, what the talent wants to say. Meanwhile, these guys are in a room, huddled together, writing for people that they don't even understand. Such a fucking mess. Mox was exhausted just because of the deal of getting rid of this pooper scooper line. Then he was off to the next shoot. He noticed this next promo had no story, and how everyone is in self-preservation mode, trying to not look like idiots, and they're wasting their time trying to get a stupid line taken away. Then they got notes from Vince McMahon. He says, and I quote, "I go into the writer's room and I'm like, any updates yet?" They're like, "No update yet, but we did get this." And it says, "Notes from VKM. Dean needs to understand why he needs to insult the audience. Dean needs to read his promos verbatim and not try to rewrite them. I'm just like the feeling of getting punched in the gut." That's how I felt reading this fucking note from VKM. Moxley said it wasn't the writer's fault, but he yelled at him anyway, asking, "Why do I work here? I'm a professional wrestler. He has experience cutting promos and bringing people into the building. If you want someone to read your stupid lines, hire an actor, because they'll probably do a better job than me, because I'm not interested in doing it." Man, you can't get more fucking clear cut than that. They didn't give a shit. They really didn't give a shit. "Why do I work here?" he says. "I'm a professional wrestler." Vince McMahon is all about sports entertaining. Vince McMahon is all about toilet humor and shit jokes. Then Dean Ambrose went to do a live promo. This portion of the script had a very bad line in it about Roman Reigns' leukemia that he didn't want to do or say. He says, and I quote, "Earlier, I had to go into Vince McMahon's office because in this promo, there's a line that's a very distasteful one about my friend who had leukemia and was now going off to recover from that. Roman Reigns, something that I don't remember what the line was, but I said, I'm not saying that. Are you kidding me? I'm going right to Vince about this one. It is clearly a mistake." I got into the production meeting at the time and said, "Surely you don't want me to say this." And he's like, "Oh, Roman's part of the story. We got to make sure he's still included, and you're going to turn on him and Seth." But that's not the fucking case. Roman's off TV. Roman is not a part of the story. Roman's a part of the story when he comes back to television. They had it all backwards. You didn't need... Listen, I know I've said in the past that I love when they bring real life and inject real life into story, because it brings out a passion and an interest in the fans that is not really there when you know it's scripted. But no matter what my feeling was on the whole Roman situation, just cancer in general, I've had family members die of cancer. And here you are using this cancer situation, which, you know, the average person watching the show is going to find relatable because they went through that. They went through chemo. They went through the struggles of going into remission. And you're using this as a fucking joke to try and sell a storyline. If there's one thing outside of death that you should not be making light of, it's fucking cancer. I understand Jeff Hardy's alcoholism. I understand that. Or I understand Jericho saying that CM Punk's father was an alcoholic. That's fine. That's fine. I'm sure that shit was approved of beforehand. That makes good television. I didn't really necessarily agree with WWE using Paul Bearer in the Undertaker CM Punk feud either. I thought that was very distasteful. I didn't like that at all. Now, it made for good television, I will admit that, but I don't agree with that at all. Paul Bearer is somebody that I grew up watching. He was a part of my fucking household. Him and The Undertaker as a pair, part of my household. I don't want to see Paul Bearer on WWE television, whether The Undertaker approved that or not, and whether that made the match and the build and the investment from the fans, in their WrestleMania match more so. I don't really give a shit. It's the moral behind it. WWE and Vince McMahon are a business, and they're going to be a cutthroat one at that. And they don't really respect anybody or anything. Who's to say Vince McMahon doesn't respect Roman Reigns? For the fact that he wants to do this and have Dean Ambrose go out there and say this shit, does he really respect Roman Reigns enough to put him in a fucking storyline and script whatever the fuck was going to be said? I'm interested in what the fuck was going to be said. That Dean Ambrose didn't want to do it. Because this is a real life situation and I'm not on board here. Good on him for sticking up for himself. But Roman wasn't a part of the storyline. Roman was gone. Seth Rollins is the one you should be focusing on. The whole story had nothing to do about Roman Reigns' leukemia. The whole story was Dean Ambrose being held back. The whole story was Dean Ambrose playing third wheel to Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Roman had nothing to do with that at that time. He was off TV. Make Dean Ambrose into fucking the Moxley vision, the Moxley character that we expected him to be. Take his anger out on Seth. Build his character from there. When Roman comes back, you have Roman and Dean at WrestleMania. I don't understand that. Meanwhile, they took everything that should have been and fucking made it into comedy. Ultimately ruining Dean Ambrose's run as a heel in 3 weeks. All because they wanted to sell the fact that Roman was on. Why did you need to mention Roman on TV? Couldn't the guy go away to do whatever the fuck he had to do? He was a non-factor on TV. Yet in some weird, twisted way, WWE wanted to make you understand that Roman is still a part of television. Don't miss him too long. He'll be back. We can't have the fans forget Roman Reigns. Meanwhile, you're not focusing on what is really important here. You should have been focusing all your attention on building Dean Ambrose up after that fantastic heel turn. One that you ruined in 3 weeks. What a joke! That alone would make me want to fucking quit. Never mind everything else that happened and happened after that. I got into the production meeting at the time and said, surely you don't want me to say this. And I'm like, oh, Roman's a part of the story. We got to include him. You turned on him and Seth. And he kind of explains it to me in a way that it's a line about Roman. You got to include him. He kind of says all of this in an inconspicuous way. So it's like, okay, it's the Vince Jedi mind trick. You go in there just saying, I'm not doing this shit. It's fucking wrong. I don't agree with it. And Vince is standing there saying, you got to do this. And he's fucking trying to manipulate you while you're talking to him. He's convincing you that it's all right and it's what you need to say. And at the end of it, it's like, okay. Moxley said at that point, though, he was immune to Vince's Jedi mind trick at that point. But he let it get to him that time, so he went through with it anyway. Because he knew at the end of the day he was leaving. He had already made his decision that he was leaving. He made his decision in July before he stood in Seth Rollins' corner at SummerSlam. He was already in the mindset, I'm done. Come April, I'm done. I don't give a fuck. Then he did the live line, and as soon as he said it, Moxley realized he shouldn't have said it. However, if he had not been so preoccupied trying to get the pooper scooper line taken out of the script, he would have been much more aware of the fact that he really needed to take out the line about Roman Reigns and his leukemia. Just an awful situation, really. Jon Moxley on the biggest mistake he's made in WWE. Moxley said his goal with the Dean Ambrose character was to be 90% John McClane from Die Hard. Then he revealed the biggest mistake he ever made in WWE is when he let them know that he had a shred of comedic timing. That's what he says is the biggest mistake. He says this: Ambrose gets his ass kicked all the time, perseveres, walks through glass in bare feet, maybe throws a one-liner out there, which I'm capable of doing, which is one of the biggest mistakes I've made. Because once I show them that I even have a shred of comedic timing, it was all over. Now they're writing jokes for me, but it's like, I'll write my own jokes when it's time for a joke. I'll know when it's time for a joke, you know? And this goes back to WWE. This is definitely something in which we've seen over time. If you give WWE something that sticks or they like, they just beat you over the fucking head with it. If something works, they do it until you're fucking sick of it. Nothing remains special. Like, I don't understand why WWE takes something that works and is fun and is different and is unique and it generates excitement. And then they go back and do it again the next week and again the next week and again the next week. I mean, the most recent thing is the fucking gauntlet matches. We were under the understanding that a gauntlet match usually happens every season during Elimination Chamber, during WrestleMania season. And it's something to determine, who enters the chamber first and who enters the chamber last. I think it's a great concept. They did it last year with Seth Rollins when he was on that Summer of Rollins thing. He was the hottest thing in the fucking company. Then they do it again with Kofi Kingston. They do it with Kofi Kingston. He replaces Mustafa Ali. Great. He lasts an hour. Then they do it again. And he's got to fight his way through the gauntlet and get into the WrestleMania main event. Then Daniel Bryan comes out and says, fuck it, you just wasted an entire hour of your life watching Kofi try to get into WrestleMania, but not really. Then WWE does a tag team gauntlet, and the New Day win that, which gets Kofi into the main event of WrestleMania against Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. 3 gauntlet matches in one fucking season. Why? Because it worked the first time, so WWE felt like they could reap the benefits of the first time that it happened with Kofi and try and duplicate the same magic. And then they tried to do it again with the tag team version with the New Day of Xavier Woods and Big E trying to help Kofi get into the main event. They took a baseball bat and fucking beat you over the fucking head with it worse than Negan could ever come up with. Terrible. That's exactly what I got from that fucking line. You give them an inch, WWE takes a fucking mile. So I've got over on my own. I felt like people really felt like I was fighting for my life those first few months as a babyface. Everyone else is going to come out to pyro in these crazy entrances. I'm just going to walk to the ring. No entrance, no pyro. I'm fighting. I really felt like I was fighting for my life, and I think that's why people connected with me there. Because he was real. He didn't present himself to be anything that he was not. What you've seen with Dean Ambrose, outside of the bullshit that he recently went through, was Dean Ambrose. But WWE, as soon as they seen he has some comedic timing and some, charisma out there as far as comedy, they want to book him in a way that they see fit. And then that also goes back to Vince controlling the narrative. Oh, this is you. But it really wasn't. Because John McClane from Die Hard isn't someone who is going to take a fucking script and read cheesy comedy. He's going to send out it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator. He's not intentionally funny. He wasn't intentionally funny in fucking Terminator 2 or the original Terminator. But usually when he says something, and it's something that is kind of serious, but at the same time, it makes you fucking laugh, that's comedic timing. To me, that's funny. That's what Dean Ambrose wanted to do, but WWE, again, you give them a fucking inch, they take a mile. It's ridiculous. Then it's like, wow, he got over. And then I started selling a lot of merchandise, and they were like, now they got to get their hands on it, try to turn it into something that it shouldn't be. For whatever reason, it is me, and Vince is a fan of my particular type of charisma. Vince can't let me be. He's got to put a hat on me, or he's got to make me come out in a goofy vehicle. Whatever reason, we're like Mentos and Diet Coke. Me and Vince together create this explosion of goofy nonsense that I detest. Mox always tried to stay positive and do his best, but it didn't really work out. Vince McMahon being a 74-year-old billionaire trying to change everything that Dean Ambrose was about. But this is the same guy that got Dean Ambrose. This is you. This is you. Vince, clearly, as we go on through dissecting this podcast, Vince didn't know who Dean Ambrose was at all. Jon Moxley on Vince McMahon lying to him lying to him about his WWE return. Before we get into that, guys, I want to tell you that I'm not lying when I say Harry's. Ooh, nice transition. Love it, man. What I am not lying about is how great a shave Harry's is. And I want you guys to know that it is the best shave that I've ever had, point blank, period. Now, did you guys know that the average guy will spend 3,000 hours of his lifetime shaving? Man, I didn't know that. Holy shit. 3,000 hours in his lifetime shaving. Don't waste 4 months of your life overpaying for poor performing razors. Get Harry's, a razor that's so sharp you can shave less often and you will save money. Just $2 per blade. Harrys.com/script. I love the closeness of Harry's shave. I love the smooth glide of their blade. I love the fact that I only realistically have to shave once a week. It's that damn good. Join the 10 million who have tried Harry's and claim your special offer by going to harrys.com/script. Why did Vince McMahon try to change Dean Ambrose? I don't know. He's demented. He doesn't get it. Why do I use Harry's? Well, Harry's founders were two regular guys tired of paying for overpriced gimmicks. They were tired of getting ripped off. Vibrating heads, flex balls, handles that look like spaceships, props in a sci-fi movie. These are just some of the tactics that the leading brands have used to overcharge us for years. Harry's makes quality, durable blades at a fair price. Like I said, just $2 per blade. To keep prices low, they cut out the middleman. Harry's bought a world-class blade factory in Germany that's been making quality blades for 99 years. 99 years! Some of the best razor blades in the world. Now they can provide great quality at factory direct prices with a 100% quality guarantee. If you don't love your shave, let them know and they will give you a full refund. JD, I love this all. It sounds great. What do I get? You're going to get a handle for an easy grip. A Harry's handle. Choice of color is yours. The orange, the evergreen, or the navy blue. You're going to get a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade for a close shave. Rich lathering shave gel that will leave you smelling great. And a travel blade cover to keep your razor dry and easy on the go. I took it to Vegas and I absolutely loved it. Listeners of my show can redeem their trial set by going to harrys.com/script. Make sure you go to harrys.com/script to redeem your offer and let them know that I sent you to help support Off the Script. Let's get back on topic, man. Jon Moxley on Vince McMahon lying to him about his WWE return. Vince McMahon a liar? Oh my God, that's news to me. So Jon Moxley goes into this with Chris Jericho on the Talk is Jericho podcast. One thing Moxley and Renee Young enjoy doing is putting on a concert on television and just hanging out. Some of those concerts are legendary events where the artists were able to express themselves. This is when it occurred to him that WWE doesn't give him the freedom that he desires. He said the entire time that he was out with injury, he wanted to give his recovery everything he had after physically moving to Birmingham, Alabama. I didn't realize that he did that. He took part in a rigorous rehab schedule, and he wanted to make sure that if he left WWE, then he knew it wasn't because he didn't try everything possible. He started to get very excited about his return, and he genuinely missed wrestling. So Moxley started watching a lot of wrestling all over the place. He put on new wrestling, old wrestling, Impact Wrestling, New Japan, Ring of Honor, CZW he mentioned. Watching all that wrestling started to give Moxley ideas about what he could do, only to realize that WWE wouldn't go for anything he came up with. Imagine that, man. All these ideas I have, is Vince or his fucking goon parade gonna enjoy them? Are they gonna do it? The answer is no. He says this, and I quote, "I remember thinking, getting a little sad because I haven't felt that way, creatively free, for such a long time, you know? So then that is where the seed was planted, you know? Because I'm just shackled in WWE. So once I get back from Birmingham, I'm training, getting ready to finally finish up the healing process, and now I'm like, it's time to finally start dipping my toe back into wrestling. I check out the product a little bit, the current product, and I start getting obsessed again, and it's like, I haven't watched wrestling in months, so I'm watching new stuff. I'm watching old stuff. I'm watching stuff I liked when I was a kid. I'm watching stuff from New Japan. I'm watching stuff from the Indies. I'm watching Impact. I'm watching Ring of Honor. I'm watching everything. I'm getting so excited, and I'm thinking of all these ideas, and I'm getting revved up like I'm ready to go. Then I start thinking like I come up with an idea like I could come back and do this and do that, or wouldn't it be a cool way for me to come back and do this or do that, or I could come back and do that. That would be cool. And every time I go, no, they wouldn't go for that. No, they wouldn't go for that either. No, they wouldn't go for that. Then I started thinking, man, maybe they're sitting around the writer's room right now discussing what they're going to do for my return. And it's like me coming back in an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile or something. Then I started getting anxiety and I started going, I'm so excited to come back to wrestling, but I'm not excited about coming back to WWE. I was picturing myself coming back to different places. I was picturing myself coming back to CZW. I was picturing myself coming back to New Japan. Anywhere but WWE. End quote. So then he decided to ride out his contract and ride it out to the end. Before he went back, Moxley flew to Stanford to speak to Vince McMahon personally at Titan Tower. Moxley wanted to come back as a heel and totally just be a completely different character because he hated the Dean Ambrose character. This was an opportunity for him to grow and evolve. Any normal person wants to grow and evolve. Clearly, Vince McMahon doesn't know the definitions of those terms. Moxley wanted to come back at WrestleMania and re-debut as a new character, but he was out a lot longer than that. He said the meeting with Vince McMahon about coming back included a return to SmackDown and feuding with AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan. He wanted to do anything other than what he was doing the past couple of years, but the Shield was already being advertised in Australia, so there was no way to come back as a heel for Dean Ambrose because the Super Showdown against Ziggler, McIntyre, and Strowman was so great. It was revealed that he would come back as Seth Rollins' partner, and their idea of his return was exactly what everybody expected. He left the meeting with Vince McMahon feeling deflated, but he did get Vince McMahon to agree to allow him a chance to debut at SummerSlam instead of before. Jon Moxley returned to Ohio, and he flew Joey Mercury out to help him train at Cody Hawk's gym. Then he received a text saying that Vince McMahon changed his mind and wanted to bring Dean back the week before SummerSlam. This is something Mox fought against, and Vince changed it despite promising that he would get a big SummerSlam return. Therefore, Ambrose was pissed off before he even made his return to WWE because Vince McMahon promised him something and then went back on it, while Ambrose made the fucking time to go out there to visit Vince personally in Stamford, Connecticut, only for Vince to change it. Seems like that happens a lot. Seems like that happens every fucking week. Somebody writes something, Vince goes back and changes it to his liking. To top it off, Seth Rollins saying that he will have a lunatic in his corner at SummerSlam killed the big pop for Ambrose music hitting as he exclaimed, "They ruin everything." If you are one of those people that thought that was a good return for Dean Ambrose, I was in the Barclays Center. I was. Sitting next to Demon Diva, Issa. And I didn't have any excitement to see Dean Ambrose out there in SummerSlam with Seth Rollins, no matter how good the match was. The fact that he dropped that line, well, you're going to have a Scottish psychopath in your corner. I'm going to have a lunatic fringe in my corner. Who the fuck sounds like? Who speaks like that? Are you fucking kidding me? Well, what a way to ruin Dean Ambrose. Well, Dean Ambrose coming back, right? Then he comes back. He doesn't utter a fucking word. And then the first person he speaks to after 3 weeks of being silent is fucking Jinder Mahal. No wonder why the guy fucking left or wanted to leave. Jon Moxley on WWE trying to bury him in a feud with Nia Jax. About an hour before this particular show, a producer came up to me and said that there has been some additions. This is when Ambrose was told that he would stay in the ring after the commercial break and he would have a confrontation with Nia Jax. This is where he said he started to get hot because of these changes to the script. He says this, and I quote, "I'm like, yes, let's talk to Vince because now I'm getting hot. I'm totally cool with taking a bump for Nia. I did it. It's 2019. She's a very powerful woman. She did great in the Royal Rumble the night before. If this existed outside of me leaving, that's a totally different conversation. End quote. So he goes on to say that only a very select few people knew that he was leaving WWE at this point, and those people were the only ones who were involved in the final script alterations that night, which is when Ambrose's segment with Nia Jax was added. So it's like, he says this, and I quote, so it's like, once it gets down to the super secret meeting with only the people who knew I was leaving, then that's when this mysterious new addition comes in, and it really felt like a middle finger, and my skin was hot, and I'm like, let's go talk to Vince. So I start stomping toward the production meeting, and Johnny Ace is following me, and I go storming right up to the middle of production in the meeting room, and Vince immediately gets up and starts gathering his stuff and goes, oh, my office. And I'm like, yeah, let's go to your office. So we sit in his office, and he starts baby-facing me and says, I understand you gave your notice, and thank you so much for everything. And I say, I guess we're doing this now, so we have our talk or whatever, and by this point, he's trying to justify it in his mind. And I told Mark Carrano that fucking, he's just as bad as fucking, yeah, he's the guy you see on Total Divas. Mark Carrano, the day I knew I was leaving was the day I got shot, and I think he told Vince that, because Vince goes, I heard you weren't happy with something about the shot thing. I wish you would have told me that I didn't know of any of these problems. I'm thinking in my head, why the fuck was I in your office then? And I went storming in there and said, what is this? Like I do all the time. How do you not know? Of course you knew. He's got to make it all okay in his mind like I didn't know. You knew. You knew for a very long time. So Vince is pretending to be an idiot. Moxley didn't want to do all these fucking hokey things and this bullshit fucking comedic shit. And he went to Vince, am I an idiot? You know me, so I'm supposed to act like an idiot. And it gets turned around, and Vince is acting like a fucking clueless buffoon. You didn't know why Moxley, or you didn't know why Ambrose was upset? He came storming into your fucking office every fucking Monday about something he didn't like. Why the fuck would you not think he's upset? He's got to make it all okay in his mind like I didn't know. You fucking knew. What a dumbass. Why am I in your office? So he told McMahon that every Monday he gets physically ill. And he doesn't know what kind of goofy nonsense the script will have for him each week. Vince says he wished he would have known, but he did know. Moxley couldn't live with the same writer coming up with words for him to say when they don't even know him. I'm trying to be like, I just need to get away for a while because I'm hoping that he just writes me off TV that night. He goes, oh, well, we'll finish you up at Mania. Whatever. He said, we're not going to bury you on the way out. I said, actually, it's funny you should mention that because that's why I stormed in here, because it looks to me that's exactly what the fuck you're doing with Nia Jax. End quote. Vince McMahon said that writing an angle between Ambrose and Nia Jax had a plan behind it. However, all Mox heard was, we're burying the fuck out of you, blah, blah, blah. We're burying the fuck out of you. Vince is a bullshit artist. There was absolutely no plans. This is coming from a guy who rewrites his show while the show is going live on the USA Network. You mean to tell me that Vince McMahon made alterations and additions to the script the night of to simply put in the script conveniently after he told Johnny Ace and Mark Carrano and just a handful of people that he was leaving the company, that he was getting ready to leave, he's not re-signing a deal, he's leaving the fucking WWE. Conveniently, he says that, and out of nowhere, a Nia Jax segment with Dean Ambrose is put on Raw in the script, yet he wants Dean Ambrose to believe, oh, there was a plan behind it. Bullshit. There was zero plan. They merely used that as a way, this fucking guy doesn't want to re-sign with us. Okay, we're going to embarrass him. That's all that was. That's all that ever was. We're burying the fuck out of you. Blah, 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 blah. That's all he heard. That's exactly what was coming out of Vince McMahon's mouth. Speaking of royalties. Moxley mentioned the royalties he still gets from WWE. He simply said, we get all the way to April 30th. The clock strikes midnight. I'm free. I get all my royalties. So if they're going to sell a DVD with the Shield on it in Cambodia a year from now, I'm getting my 2.7 cents. You better believe that. So he's still going to get paid for merchandise or whatever merchandise is left on the shop and whatever has his likeness, name, or shield associated with it. He's getting his 2.7 cents. Moxley did say that losing to EC3 actually backfired on WWE. So they went away from the Nia Jax situation, and nobody really knows why. That was booked for a house show. They were booked legitimately for a match. And the rumor was that it was going to be Ambrose's last WrestleMania match, Nia Jax versus Dean Ambrose. So that went away. They had it promoted for a house show, and then they canceled it. Whatever the excuse was, or sponsors didn't like it. They didn't want the man-on-woman violence, or whatever the fucking case may be. I'm sure Ambrose got his way eventually, and WWE smartened up. This guy gave us 6 fucking years, never batted an eye with anything. It was only in the last 4 months that he really complained because it wasn't who he was. He was working for a bunch of people that did not know who he was. This guy gave literally everything. So for WWE to turn around and bury this guy the way that they planned to do, and embarrass him the way that they planned, it's fucking disgusting. WWE should be ashamed of themselves. So they moved on from Nia Jax, and they put him in the ring with EC3. Now, EC3 is, in his own right, buried on WWE television. Jon Moxley said losing to EC3 on Raw in 2 minutes is something that backfired on WWE. Now, they put me against EC3 debuting from NXT. Great talent, great friend of mine, excited to work with him. To have EC3 come in as a babyface and defeat me in 2 minutes. The crowd does not like this at all because it's transparent what is happening. This is not good for EC3 because he's not going to get the backlash. So this is an unfair position for him to be put in. So then we get to that weekend and I'm working with EC3 on house shows. Now I'm the biggest babyface on the show. I'm supposed to be a heel. I'm thumbing him in the eye. I'm making fun of the town. Doesn't matter what I'm saying. They're violently rejecting him as a babyface and cheering the hell out of me because it has now nothing to do with him. It's like an anti-WWE situation. Yeah. So it backfired on EC3 and WWE. EC3 was looked at as the heel, and Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, was looked at as the babyface. It really didn't even make any sense because at that point EC3 wasn't doing anything anyway. That wasn't the proper way to go about debuting EC3 because they had him show up, vignettes, spraying himself with fucking water bottles in the back, looking at himself in the mirror, sitting in catering. They treated him like a fucking afterthought anyway before that match. They send him out there. Really didn't do him any favors to what they did before that anyway. So Ambrose got a text from a writer who told him that he's going to be defeated by EC3 on Raw once again in 2 minutes the following week. This time Moxley had to say something about how this is backfiring on EC3. The writer says that he knew what was going on, but this is what Vince McMahon wanted to have happen. So the writer knew. Dean Ambrose, before he even said anything, I hope you know that this is backfiring. And the writer was like, what, the fact that you're a heel and they're cheering you and EC3 is supposed to be a babyface and they're booing him? The writer knew. Yeah, that's the case, but this is what Vince McMahon wants. By the time we got to that Monday, from what I understand, the reports from the house shows, the producers are telling him what happened and he's pissed. Apparently he's like mad about this. Like, God forbid, I'm so sorry the fucking fans, Vince McMahon's mad by the way. God forbid, so sorry the fans who I've busted my ass for years might be upset at the fact that you're trying to bury me on the way out. You know, like, sorry, dude, like, I've given you my body for 5-6 years. Sorry that they have a shred of respect for me that apparently you don't have. So then I get to the TV, and Jamie Noble, the producer, comes up to me and says, you're going to do a little promo with Seth, and he's the heel and you're the babyface. So then he goes on to explain to Jericho, we just switched roles with no explanation, so I guess that's their solution. So the Shield comes back and we do our whole thing. Ambrose then transitions into a program with Drew McIntyre where DQ finishes upon DQ finishes and DQ finishes starting to become the normal thing on Monday Night Raw. Unreal. Unreal. WWE tried and tried and tried to bury Dean Ambrose, but it backfired. Good. It backfired on them. And EC3 reacted to this. He reacted to this immediately after the podcast aired on Wednesday. He reacts to Jon Moxley's comments about him on Talk is Jericho. EC3 obviously heard the Jon Moxley episode of Talk is Jericho because he sent out a tweet simply stating he didn't add anybody. Thank you. The feeling is mutual. Good luck. Poor EC3. I'm honestly very sad for EC3. And there are reports coming out that Vince McMahon kept EC3 down in WWE due to the Jon Moxley feud. Complete bullshit. It's complete fucking bullshit. Meltzer confirmed on the Wrestling Observer Radio that Vince McMahon doesn't like EC3 because of his failed feud with Dean Ambrose. So you're blaming EC3 for something that you should have known. Mr. Intelligent, I'm a genius. Right? You couldn't figure that one out though, right? You didn't know what the fuck you were doing? Failed feud with Dean Ambrose is apparently why they look down on EC3. Although he didn't go into the reasoning, more specifically, he did remark that it is 100% the reason for EC3's lack of a push in WWE. Oh, really now? Perhaps Vince McMahon blames EC3 for this failed run with Ambrose. Ambrose was out! He told you he was leaving! Why are you taking this out on EC3 when Ambrose already told you he was gone? What run was there? What run was there going to be for Dean Ambrose? This is a bullshit fucking story. It still put EC3 in a pretty awful spot as he was trying to get cheers while much of the fans were still very upset about WWE burying Dean Ambrose on the way out of the company. This is fucking, I swear to God, man. A failed run with Ambrose. Ambrose was on the way out. How the fuck are you going to blame EC3 for putting him on television, having him go over Ambrose in 2 minutes? He did his job. He did everything that he was asked to do. Meanwhile, we're going to blame you for Dean Ambrose being cheered when he's supposed to be a babyface or heel. He's a babyface in this match, but he's supposed to be a heel. Now, the reason why EC3 is having a failed run in WWE is because of the reasons I already cited several different times already. He went to TNA. He made himself a star coming from WWE. He thought that he was world championship material over there, that it would translate to WWE. They didn't like the fact that he went to go make a name for himself somewhere else without the WWE machine behind him. He comes back thinking everything's going to be the same, right? Oh, I'm going to be much better off. I'm going to take that evolutionary step in pro wrestling. I'm going to have a great career. They knew what they did. They knew what he did. He comes back thinking he's home and things are going to be different. That's exactly what they did. Vince knew who Derek Bateman was. Oh, you're the guy who left to go be world champion over in Impact Wrestling? Fuck you. That's exactly what they did. Or it could be looked at as, you thought Triple H would be able to give you a fresh new start. Well, we're going to pull you up and I'm going to fucking bury you. Triple H means nothing to me. NXT is fucking worthless to me. You thought NXT was your safe haven, right? Now I got you buried. EC3 will look great in AEW. What a fucking joke. Complete fucking joke is Vince McMahon. Jon Moxley worked Vince McMahon, and now Vince is furious at Jon Moxley. Brad Shepard reported on the Oh You Didn't Know podcast that Vince McMahon did not watch AEW, Double or Nothing. Not surprised by that whatsoever. However, he was very upset about Moxley's debut because he was under the impression that Dean Ambrose would be making a return to the company eventually. Vince was he was very furious. What could that be, you ask? Well, he was fuming mad because I have confirmed this with multiple sources. Dean Ambrose, a.k.a. Jon Moxley, worked Vince McMahon, and WWE absolutely despised what happened here. He worked everybody. Moxley gave the impression that he wouldn't be gone from WWE for long, or he would come back eventually, like in the fall. So that was literally the expectation that he gave WWE. He lied to Vince, he lied to everybody, and said that he was just going to make a movie in Hollywood. So WWE would have never given him such a nice, long send-off if they thought he was going to AEW. That's what I was told. I don't blame Moxley at all for the fact that they treated him like shit creatively. Like, nobody understood what was going on with his character, or they didn't listen to him, and they just mistreated him. He didn't have any creative freedom. Then they wanted to bury him on the way out with Nia Jax, and they did the thing with EC3. At this point, he was frustrated. On top of that, we already talked about his return and how they fucked up the return. So it's okay for it's okay for Vince to work Moxley. It's okay for Vince to work Dean Ambrose, but it's not okay for Moxley to work Vince? We just talked about how Vince McMahon was under the impression, well, let's not debut on Raw. Let's debut at SummerSlam coming back from injury. Then Vince McMahon goes and changes it. He debuts on Monday Night Raw, and then the big pop coming out at SummerSlam is already ruined. They ruin everything. So it's not okay for Jon Moxley to go into business for himself, knowing he's already on the way out and he doesn't give a shit. He's already planning the next stages of his fucking career and life. So it's not okay to work Vince McMahon, someone who clearly did not appreciate him. Sorry, Vince, for the fans having some fucking respect for me, respect that I thought you had for me, giving my body for you, to the WWE for 6 years. I'm sorry, Vince. So what did he do? That entire Mox promo, that went viral on May 1st. That entire thing was planned out. The inklings of that were planned out in January, because he was already gone. He decided he's gone. July 2018. Everything snowballed after that. Come January, he was already in the thought process of doing a movie-like trailer. He explained on the podcast how he was a fan of movie trailers. He mentioned Venom and Tom Hardy. You didn't see Venom in the trailer, but it got you fucking pumped. Man, I gotta wait 8 months to see this fucking movie. I gotta wait 8 months to see Venom, right? So he goes, I believe his name is Nick Mondo. He calls this guy up. He's like, I got this visualization of prison and breaking out and all this stuff. And right then and there, he gave him the entire idea. Mondo gave him the idea of what he wanted to do. And Moxley was like, you're the man for the job. That's exactly what I'm thinking. You're hired. Says they rented the most expensive cameras that you could possibly have. Spent $8 to $10 grand on this fucking viral video that went viral on Twitter. And everything just came about. And he was planning all of this stuff out. And Vince, during the filming, he was physically on set filming this thing that you're seeing on Twitter. And Vince McMahon calls him up. He described Vince McMahon calling him up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's on the West Coast. Moxley is. It's 4 a.m. on the East Coast. Vince doesn't sleep, apparently. 4 a.m., Moxley is filming in L.A. at 1 a.m., midnight, whatever. And he's like, I need you to come do the European tour for me after WrestleMania. It's going to be a whole Shield thing. Something happened, I need you to fill in. And he was like, no. He tried to convince me with the Shield thing again. I'm not going to fucking do your rigorous and brutal WrestleMania, post-WrestleMania tour. I'm in LA. I'm filming a movie. I'm on the set filming a movie. So Vince legitimately thought he was filming a movie. All right, thank you, buddy. Little did he know that Moxley was filming a movie. He wasn't really lying. He was filming a 2-minute movie about his afterlife on the indies. So he worked Vince McMahon, told him a little white lie. Yeah, I'm in LA filming a movie. I'll talk to you later. Meanwhile, it's okay for Vince to change the fucking script on Dean Ambrose. He wants to show up at SummerSlam, but no, you'll show up on Monday Night Raw. No, you're on Raw. We'll make additions during the show where you're going to do something with Nia Jax in hopes that they bury him. Vince wants to bury Dean Ambrose. Really? So it's not okay for Jon Moxley to do this right back to Vince McMahon. Fuck Vince McMahon. That's exactly how that came about. So Vince can be furious all he wants. He could be furious all he wants. So how did he tell WWE that he was leaving? How did he tell WWE that he was leaving? Now, everybody knew that big that tweet, the bizarre, Moxley's not signing, or Jonathan Good's not signing with the WWE. We hope that he returns someday soon. So that just sent rumors out there. Everybody was talking about it. Obviously, he says that was the instant rumor that came out. Oh, he's going to AEW, but people don't know anything, I saw every possible rumor. I got a text every day with a screenshot or a link to a video. Is this true? Is this true? Is this true? I guess silence drives people nuts, and I've just been silent. People just want to know, and people who are supposed to know, I guess they have something to say, so they keep saying it, and they're sending me a new contract. I'm like, okay, it's coming next week. We just got to get through Saudi, and this new contract's coming. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm waiting for it. I'm relishing the opportunity to get this new contract and then saying I'm not interested. I'm like waiting for it. I'm excited for it because I don't know how they're going to react. Eventually, it just doesn't come, and then it's like Royal Rumble weekend, and I'm thinking, I know I'm supposed to work with Seth on Monday, and Mark Carrano comes in saying it's Monday, and Hunter wants to give it to you personally, and I just couldn't hold it anymore, and we're doing some access shit. I couldn't hold it anymore. I was like, dude, look, in 114 days or whatever, I'm gone. And Mark Carrano was like, whoa, let's go talk to Vince. He was going into detail what they were doing. They were rushing around, and they were getting nervous when he's like, dude, in 114 days, I'm gone. And I love the fact that he's got specifically 114 days. I'm done. You know, who says that? That's specific, right down to the fucking hour. In 114 days, 59 minutes, and 56, 55, 54 seconds, I'm done. So this is what I told Vince too, and Hunter. I said, this is not a decision I came too fast or lightly. This has been a long time coming. I'm not going to change my mind. This is not about any one thing in particular. This is not an emotional decision. This is happening. I'm leaving, and it's okay. It is okay. Mark Carrano then asked Moxley if he wanted to tell Vince McMahon John didn't want to ruffle any feathers because it was Royal Rumble weekend, and he didn't want to tell anyone. He didn't want to tell Seth. He didn't want to tell Roman because he knew that Rollins was winning the Royal Rumble, and he didn't want to put that burden on him to go into the Rumble and have that weighing on his mind because they're all best friends in real life, which, again, I appreciate. Moxley just wanted to put it out there that he was leaving, so they didn't advertise him for future events. He was also secretly hoping that he'd get to work with Seth on that Monday, and he'd curb stomp me into oblivion, and then I'd get to go home. He didn't think there was any other way they would keep him on television if he knew he was leaving, or if they knew he was leaving. Then the next night after the Royal Rumble, Dean Ambrose waited to speak with Vince McMahon about it personally, and his interaction did not go well at all, which we already discussed. Now, that is pretty much the gist of it. And a lot of people are making a big deal about what WWE is going to do with Renee Young. And I honestly don't think Renee Young is going to last in WWE. I don't know when her contract is up, but clearly there is a conflict of interest. I don't think that... Listen, WWE's done worse shit in the past. I could see them treating Renee Young like a piece of shit or saying something on commentary to the point of making her feel uncomfortable, but WWE is in the position right now where they're looking at what to do with Renee Young. Brad Shepard reported on the Oh You Didn't Know podcast that WWE is currently trying to figure out what to do with Renee Young after her husband left the company for AEW. It might not be a good look for WWE to punish Renee Young, but they haven't batted an eye when it comes to bad PR before. He says, and I quote, "So I think it's very interesting now because it puts Renee Young in an interesting situation. I am told they are looking at what to do with her as well, but they're not happy about it. Vince is fuming over Dean Ambrose, telling them that he was just going to Hollywood to make a movie, but actually he was leaving to make a movie and sign with AEW. So he's upset with that, and Vince should just grow a fucking pair. You know, you want to gloat that you got the biggest pair of grapefruits, right? Show some fucking balls. If Moxley was so important to you, then you really should have fucking treated him a little bit better. If Moxley was so, non-existent, if he's not really that big of a deal, then you wouldn't mind him going to AEW. You got so much fucking talent to work with. Book your fucking shows with the talent you got. There's no reason why we're getting shit Mondays and shit Tuesdays every fucking week. Give me a break. Fucking ridiculous. Finally, guys, I'm going to end with this. And this is a situation where it really makes everybody in the fucking community ridiculous. I mean, are you that fucking stupid? Seriously. And I'm talking about Sami Zayn and AEW. Now, it's been reported that Vince McMahon was furious over Sami Zayn mentioning AEW on Raw. During Monday's Raw episode, Sami Zayn made a remark that the audience could have asked him about anything. Could have asked me about my love life. You could have asked me if I'm a good kisser. You could have asked me about AEW. Corey Graves panicked. And you could tell that the reports of, them keeping it secret from everybody resonated all over Corey Graves. He didn't know what the fuck to do. He was like, he did the only thing that he's designed to do, because they're fucking robots over there. He went away from it eventually. Next question. Next question. Sarah, where are you? Amidst the reports of McMahon's negative reaction, WWE edited the reference out of their YouTube skit. They uploaded the video to YouTube, took the reference of AEW out. Conflicting reports have since emerged about the situation. Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer discussed the situation on Wrestling Observer Radio. On Monday night, Alvarez stated that his sources told him that the line was not scripted, while Meltzer told him that the line was okayed beforehand. On Tuesday's Wrestling Observer Live, Alvarez elaborated on the situation. These are two facts about the situation. There are absolutely people who insist that Sammy was given the okay to mention AEW. I've even heard from one person who said that in the script, they went around in the morning of Raw, it was in the script, and that he was going to mention AEW. One person said, I had another person say that, and Dave had people tell him, Meltzer, that it was scripted into the promo. Now, with that said, I've heard from multiple people, far more people, in fact, and people that heard from other people that all said the line was not scripted, that the line was not supposed to be said. I was also told from multiple sources that when it happened, Vince flipped his lid. He was furious that this happened. So that's literally, those are the two things that I can tell you. So however you want to figure it out, what the hell is going on here, there are various ways you can explain all this. The one that people seem to think is the most likely is that a small number of people were told he was given the okay and that they're working the boys and flipping out about it. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that some people were told he was given the okay, but some people said that he wasn't and that Vince flipped out. I wasn't there. I don't know the flip out if it occurred. I wasn't there to witness it, but I do know that the people who were there absolutely 100% believe that he was very angry, that this was not him putting on a show for people, that this was not him trying to work the boys, that he was angry when this got on the air. I don't know how to explain everything. I just know that's what happened last night. Folks, the WWE has been, for the last couple of years, a company that rather book logically and book creatively, they would rather get the shock out of you. Monday Night Raw was fucking abysmal. And the one thing that we all hang our hat on Monday was a dreadful electric chair segment that seen the lowest of the low asked to Sami Zayn. And the one thing that we remember from Monday Night Raw was the mention of AEW. Clearly this took to the audience and they went to Google and they Googled AEW. What is AEW? If Sami Zayn went out there and mentioned AEW by initial, off the script, he went into business for himself, Sami Zayn would have been suspended that evening. You would have woke up to reports from Meltzer, from Alvarez, from everybody in the community that Sami Zayn was suspended for 30 days indefinitely without pay. There would have been some repercussion. There would have been some sort of consequence stemming from that one little fucking line. You could have asked me about AEW. WWE is not going to fire Sami Zayn. Because if they fire Sami Zayn, then he has 90-day no-compete, and then by the time TNT rolls around, he'll be on TV as El Generico. Does WWE want that? The answer is no. So they're not firing anybody for obvious fucking reasons. This was scripted to be in the promo. Whatever the case may be, this is one of those things that is said and the entire roster got worked. Now, as far as Vince McMahon being furious, if this was scripted in the promo, this clearly had to be approved by Vince McMahon. So if Vince McMahon is furious, then Vince McMahon is furious and he's playing a fucking role and should deserve an Academy Award. He is absolutely flipping out and acting, all while keeping up the facade of keeping it as a work and working the boys in the back. I don't know why it was done. For the simple fact that it raised awareness for AEW, I don't know why it was done. I don't know why you mention AEW and do nothing about it and present the show in which you did, instead of taking what AEW did on Saturday night and booking a fucking great wrestling show to answer the call. I don't know why it was done. The only thing I could think of, the only possible thing I could think of is mention. I really don't even know. I don't even know what to fucking say on Monday. I don't even know what to say now. I honestly want to say the reason why it was mentioned was to generate some excitement in a lifeless, dead locker room. Maybe WWE's trying to bring awareness to AEW to excite their fucking locker. I don't know. It was just so bizarre that nobody has a legit answer. Nobody has a legit answer. This is why Vince Russo went out there and said, AEW and WWE are in bed together. There's a reason why this was done, to bring awareness to AEW. WWE fans are now more aware, more so than ever, about AEW, where chants in fucking Oklahoma and Kentucky resonating throughout the arena, chanting AEW. Even the non-smart fans, or the non-smart mark crowds, are not chanting AEW. Everybody knows who AEW is. Everybody will know who AEW is come October on TNT. Is this a case in which Vince Russo was right, like I mentioned in the beginning? Are they in bed together? The better the ratings are for AEW, the better the ratings will be for WWE, because wrestling needs another period in which wrestling is exciting again. Wrestling needs another period in which wrestling is popular and cool again. Clearly, WWE is not using that to their advantage. They don't really give a shit about being cool or being the best or presenting a real product. Maybe they are in bed with AEW. Maybe they're using AEW to generate interest for their own product, and ratings go up as a cause of that. And everybody succeeds. Better ratings for everybody, more money for everybody. I don't know. I really don't know. They got to do something, because the product that they're doing now is not going to generate the ratings that Fox wants come October. There's no way. There's no fucking way. You'll watch that one episode and realize that nothing's changed. Nothing will change. And you'll go right back to fucking doing whatever else you do on Monday and Friday nights. I'm not saying that Vince Russo is correct. I'm just saying you got to appreciate the fact that he's not really all that wrong. And it's in his right to say that, because why else would this have been done on Monday night? And I can also combat Vince Russo's logic by saying, Vince McMahon, a wrestling entrepreneur, right? Vince McMahon is getting in bed with football. He created the XFL to give an alternative to the NFL audience, right? Look at Tony Khan. Tony Khan's a football guy who's getting in the wrestling world and creating a wrestling promotion to present an alternative to WWE. Is it really that far out there to believe Vince Russo? At the same time, it's also not that far out there to think that Tony Khan, someone who is ingrained in football with the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's not all that out of the realm of probability that he wanted to get in bed with wrestling and present an alternative to WWE, for the same reason that Vince McMahon is doing the XFL, to give an alternative to the NFL. So there's two sides to the fucking opinion. You can go your conspiracy theory ways, or you could really just logically look at it. Tony Khan, NFL guy, doing wrestling. Vince McMahon, a wrestling guy, doing football. Either way you look at it, it really does make for some interesting discussions. And I'm getting the fuck out of here. Oh my goodness, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so very much for all of your support. If you did enjoy the podcast, please hit that thumbs up. Definitely follow me on social media, man. At JD from NY206. Hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that bell for all notifications. That's Twitter and Instagram. Patreon.com/JD from NY206. Make sure you guys go check out Harry's.com/script. Audibletrial.com/offthescript. TheRidge.com/offthescript. Code SCRIPT at checkout for 10% off this week's videos. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Double or Nothing, backstage at Double or Nothing, news and rumors coming out of AEW's monumental show, and the interview at StarCast in Vegas with Private Party. Make sure you guys go and check all that stuff out, man. Thank you all so very much. Please hit that thumbs up, and I will see you right back here on Saturday for more Off the Script. I'll talk to you guys later.